Greetings. This is Al Batinga and Deanna Mendeville with CCS Learning Academy. And what we want to do is introduce you to a topic called critical and strategic thinking. And so we're going to give you a high-level overview and outline of the class and what we do and how we do it, and get you interested, excited about critical and strategic thinking. So again, we're from CCS Learning Academy. And so let's go through some of the highlights of critical thinking and strategic thinking. First and foremost, what is critical thinking? So we're going to define critical thinking in this workshop, of course. And most of you have dabbled in it, and you know critical thinking, analytical thinking, right? There's a lot of different concepts there that we can discuss. And so we'll talk about that. And then next, we'll talk about what is strategic thinking. And of course, why does it matter? How do critical and strategic thinking work together? What's the concept of critical and strategic thinking? And so there's some subtle differences, right? As you probably know, critical thinking is the thinking that is right in front of you. In other words, I get a project and I need to look at something. I need to study something. I'm going to utilize my critical thinking in studying it. Strategic thinking is more long-term. So maybe if I'm looking at a project, I want to look at how the project pans out for the future of the organization. I want to look at it, how it fits into other projects, right? Those are simple examples, some easy examples on how critical and strategic thinking work together. So one is immediate, which is critical, and you do that on a regular basis. And then strategic is more planning for the future, how this project works into it. Now, inside of strategic thinking, you need to be critically thinking. You need to critically think. When you're doing critical thinking, you're not necessarily doing strategic thinking, because strategic is longer term. They work hand in hand in many ways. And so we also want to ask the question, why excel at critical and strategic thinking? In other words, what's in it for me? What's in it for you as a student, as an attendee? What do you get from this? What's the purpose of this, right? And so you can probably guess some of this. As a critical thinker, you're going to solve more problems. You're going to do things that will help you and your organization continue to progress, right? So from a critical thinking perspective, we use that on a daily basis. And if you could get standardized on your critical thinking that we'll talk to you about in class, and really analyze how are we currently thinking and what can we do to continue to grow our thinking, it's going to help you from an overall perspective. And then, of course, we're in July, right? Or we're at the middle of the year. And so we need to start planning for the next year. And that's more like strategic thinking. Now, not necessarily planning for the next year. It could be planning your career. It could be planning how you do certain things to impact the bigger picture. It could be, what do you need to do in the third and fourth quarter, or first, second, third, fourth quarter, whatever quarter you're in, to move things forward, to be impactful, to move the needle, as is a common business saying, right? And so why excel at critical and strategic thinking? It's simply because it will help you as well as your organization continue to move forward. Critical thinking is absolutely important on a day-to-day basis. Strategic thinking is very important when you're wanting to look at it a little bit longer. It could be 2, 3, 4 weeks. How does this project fit into our next project that we're working on? How does this product serve and work with our other products and services, right? All great questions. And we cover that in the class. We discuss it. We figure those kinds of things out. And then what traits and tools do we need to think critically and strategically? So from a trait and a tool perspective, let's talk about traits for just a second. In critical thinking, you also need analytical thinking. Now, analytical thinking is the ability to look at the smaller pieces of this. In other words, to analyze the smaller pieces. Critical thinking is the bigger type of picture, how it fits in. And then, of course, strategic thinking is the overall. So they all fit in. And so that's one of the traits. Tools, there are some thinking tools that you can use. You can use something as simple as, in order to get to the root cause of a problem, right? We're talking about problem here. You can use a tool called 5 Whys, developed by Toyota years ago, decades ago. And it's a simple tool. Why aren't we meeting sales? Whatever the answer is. Why aren't we marketing better? Answer. Why don't we have a budget plan for those marketing needs? And whatever the answer is, we continue to ask 4, 5, 6 times. The 5 Whys is just a general number, and that's a tool that you can use when you think critically as well as strategically. And then the next concept is, what stops us from critical and strategic thinking? Because there's a price to be paid for not thinking critically. There's a price to be paid for not being strategic and thinking strategically. So what are the reasons? Well, you and I know, and we can simply say, I don't have the time, right? I've got so many projects in line that I don't have the time to do more critical thinking or more strategic thinking. I don't have the budget, right? The budget to look long-term, because we don't even have a stated budget. So there's some specific reasons that we're going to discuss to talk about those specific pinpoints that stops us from thinking critically, thinking strategically as we work in our day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month jobs. And then we're going to talk about best practices for critical and strategic thinking. So let's list it out. We're going to do this together, by the way. What are the best practices for critical thinking? Let's talk. What are the best practices for strategic thinking? Let's discuss. And then what we do is we come up with best practices. And so we have best practices. And then in the next part of this workshop, we do breakouts. And breakouts are the reason is to utilize and internalize. The more you utilize a tool, a trait, a concept, a best practice, the more it becomes internalized. And what that means is you want to get it to the place where it's normal, natural, happening every single time, right? That comes through time, that comes through practice. But even if it's time, you have to ensure that you have allotted time to practice and to work with somebody else. As for example, there's many ways to practice this, but working with somebody else very simply, right? You can get on a Zoom call and you can talk to somebody and let's practice strategic thinking. And you can talk about that, discuss that, and utilize it. And so the concept of internalization is when it comes natural. You don't have to think about that. That, again, comes over time, over practice, over internalization. And last but not least, we want to have an action plan for moving forward. How do you take that wisdom and the knowledge of strategic thinking, of critical thinking, and move that forward till tomorrow, next week, next month? And so what we do at the end of class is we craft and we discuss and we talk about the planning moving forward. So let's talk for a moment on how we do this. One is we do pre-work. So we prepare you for the workshop, right? We send out a questionnaire and we just ask you some specific questions. It could be something as simple as, how have you used critical thinking in the past? Have you taken a critical thinking class, right? We're trying to utilize pre-work so that when we come into class, we're moving forward more quickly than if we did not. And then we always have interactive workshops. Our workshops are interactive, meaning we're going to interact. We're going to jump into the concept of breakouts, right? We're going to break out, and a typical breakout could be 10 minutes. So it could go from 5 minutes at the short end to 15, 20 minutes at the longer end. And basically what you do is you work with 3 or 4 of your teammates, sometimes 2, right? A small group, sometimes 3 or 4, every once in a while, a little bit bigger, 5. And then at times we work with the whole group, whether the class is 5, 10, or 15 people, we work together as we work through the process, right? We're trying to internalize. And then of course we have a handout, we give you a handout, detailed handout, and we use PowerPoint as a slideshow just to reinforce. And then we do what are called polls, and polls mean we just put out a concept and we see what the vote is and then we discuss it. you and I, we discuss it. What's the poll? What's the poll results? What do you think? Why are you voting on that way, and why, or why are you not? Right? Let's have a discussion there, and you're going to learn more as you go along. And then we also provide support for 180 days after the course, because a lot of times you take the class, you take the workshop, and then you go into the marketplace, you go back into it, and now you start implementing 2-3 weeks later, and something's not working. Well, we want to encourage you to utilize us for workshop material support, right? So we're there for you. You're going to email us, and sometimes within the day, within 24 hours, we'll get back with you. We'll answer the questions as you go. And the last concept here is we do a webinar 30 to 45 days after the course. And what that means is we just utilize that time. It's about an hour where we basically review material, answer any questions you have, and just allow it to freeform for just an hour of investment. And what that does is reinforce material. And then the questions that you have as you're applying this material come up, right? And so those are important aspects to answer those kind of questions and follow up and to ensure that you understand. And so that's how we work together to ensure that the results you get are the results that you want. So again, the class name is Critical and Strategic Thinking. My name is Al Batinga. I work with Deanna Mendeville, and we're with CCS Learning Academy, and we're so excited to work on this topic, heavy duty topic, lots of fun, lots of activities, lots of exercises. So come on down and join us. We look forward to seeing you soon.